Hi, so we're back, and we have a really great caller on the line. His name is Alexander Demetrius. He wrote a book and published it back in 2013 called The Reward of Not Knowing, based on an account of how he was a child born into mental illness. He had a mother who had multiple personality disorder, which has since been renamed the dissociative identity disorder. And he learned how to use that negativity, which he grew up with, to experience a bliss in his life and set out on an adventure of self-discovery. So I really just want to bring him in now. Hi, Alexander.
Hello.
Okay, so for our listeners today, I'm just going to have you start off by explaining a little bit about your mom's mental disorder, the personality disorder, and talk about what that was like for you in your childhood, and then, I'll bring you into what made you write that book.
Certainly. So dissociative identity disorder is essentially what it sounds like. My mom was not able to identify with one personality, and most people who know their mother or father will say, oh yeah, this is definitely the way he is or she is, but that didn't stick with my mom. She was many different personalities, all going jumping in and out. And what made it tricky was she didn't have the type of multiple personalities that one's a male identity, one smokes, one, etc. All of hers were different aspects of herself when a traumatic event occurred, and you might say froze that part of her in time. So she had a personality that was like a toddler, and when it would take over, all of her motor skills would be reduced to like a little child, and she could only, babble. She had another one that was like we call it the monster, which we believe that personality, or we as in the therapist, believe that personality took the brute force of all the punishment and didn't know how to communicate. So it was just raw rage and, just a raw personality.
Like based on the environment, based on, you said, traumatic situations in the environment. So the toddler would come out mainly when there was a particular trauma happening or something that caused anxiety for her, and the toddler was better fit, whereas the rage monster would come out when it was better fit in another kind of situation, right?
Right. The whole environment was just one big minefield, and I didn't know when I was going to be stepping on a mine in my mom's company. And what that did was it turned me into her caregiver, because she raised me by herself, and it was just her and I. Though I have 3 older half-siblings, I was the only one that, to be perfectly honest, was too scared to run away like they did. So it was through being afraid that I learned how to not be afraid.
Wow.
Because my mom was a very formidable human. So insanity and genius go very close.
Yes, hand in glove.
Right. And so my mom is a composer and pianist, and my father was a big band musician, and
very right brain
together
people.
They could have been absolutely, they could have been unstoppable, but her illness was the toxic ingredient in the cocktail that was their marriage. And so I grew up as a child seeing that and all the fights that broke out between the two, and it started to shape my idea. And then, of course, it echoed into my own dating life. And it wasn't until the light finally dawned on that, wow, I'm just reenacting that cycle of having to find somebody to care for, because that's all I knew growing up.
Oh, you mean you identified? You identified for yourself. You were actually reliving that cycle.
Right, and going through all the frustrations of it, not knowing why I was going through it. And so it was through the frustration that I finally was like, I got to do something different. And so I remember one night I was laying in bed, and I just opened my eyes and said out loud, okay, and I went to my laptop and started to crank out this just a bunch of what I call literary vomit, and it I didn't punctuate properly, but it started to just get everything that was
Stream
always
of
just
consciousness. You just let it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then from that started to a book started to take shape. I mean, first started off with a chapter, or rather a paragraph, and then a chapter, and then a whole book came from that. And in the process of ordering that book, my own life, I was able to take all those stories and extrapolate or pull from them the message and the lesson that I garnered from that experience, and then order my life around that.
Okay, what was the biggest lesson? What's that big message?
Well, you, as you know yourself, are not the final term of your character and being. And out here, we see all these problems, but inward, we're the source of them all.
Absolutely. You are your own problem. There's no such thing as a problem. You are everything, right? So it's bringing yourself, your awareness back inside to find out what the layers are inside of you to come to your own truth. But you can't do that if you're not looking within. Right? So this brings us into this other beautiful component of your book, which was interweaved through the whole thing, the work of Joseph Campbell and Follow Your Bliss. So talk about that. Talk about, this is exactly in line with Joseph Campbell's work.
Joseph Campbell came into our being as a child when my mother, by chance, went to the library and some woman was turning in The Power of Myth with Bill Moyer, and she checked it out, and she and I would watch this thing, and there was something very compelling about him that just glued me to the TV, even though I didn't really understand the content. But Joseph Campbell, his famous admonition to his students, because he was a teacher of comparative mythology at Sarah Lawrence College, was follow your bliss. And that became my mantra in life, because the way Joseph Campbell outlined a would-be hero goes through a sequence of events when they set off to discover something that's never been beheld before. In my case, it was getting away from my mom so I could figure out what I was going to do with my life.
It's basically the hero's journey is coming back to who you really are. It's all of our journeys. We are the hero in the story. Yeah.
Amen.
And that's what he did, basically. For those who don't know the work of Joseph Campbell and why this is important to you doing the Follow Your Bliss throughout your book is, it's about taking all the stories we've ever heard, religious doctrines of thought, philosophies. They're all different stories. They're all different constructs, but basically each one from every origin, from every culture, through every era, has come to it's saying the same thing. So it's this universal truth that's just put into different words, and different characters are created to tell these stories over and over and over again. And Joseph Campbell did this comparison where he took it all and he said, you know what? These are all saying the same story, and the story is us. The hero's journey is about a man, woman, human being, coming to their true selves. The fact that you're so much more than this being on this planet in this physical realm. You are multidimensional. And so for somebody with, let's just tie it back right into your story with your mom, for you to have lived with so many different personalities in your mother, who's supposed to be this root in your life, this grounding force, and usually with the personality disorder of this magnitude, they have a host personality that's like supposed to be your real mom, and then these facets of her personality that, as you mentioned, came out when she was triggered by something in the environment. But I'm not even sure if you really knew even your host personality of your mother. So it makes you feel like, who the heck am I? And that may have sprung this journey for you where you're looking at all of Joseph's comparisons with these stories and recognizing that is your journey. It's all of our journey, but yours is so beautiful that through something so traumatic that could have hindered you, you arose to this challenge of recognizing if you didn't have that stability growing up, you were going to find it in yourself and find who you were.
Well said.
Right. So keep going. So then, so your mom, was she in treatment for this stuff? And then how did the manifestation of this work for you start to help you, quote unquote, follow your bliss? And what is follow your bliss?
Well, she was in treatment, and the only thing that started to work for her was hypnotherapy. And my mom's Medicaid, I believe it was, would only pay for 3 treatments a month, and she needed a treatment like every week. So what she ended up doing was memorizing how the hypnotist put her under, and then came home and taught me, and I was all of like 10 years old.
Wow.
And so whenever there would be a explosion, I would know to
hypnotize
get
yourself.
my mom, hypnotize her and find out which personality was affected, either put it back to sleep or resolve that issue, and then there would be
you
like
became
maybe
a
2 weeks.
psychotherapist at 10 years old.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
But the funny thing was, I was not raised. I was solely raised by my mother, and she intentionally kept me away from my father because she felt he had attributes that were not going to lead me to my greater good, whatever. So, essentially, I didn't know what any of my characteristics from my dad were, and so even when he passed, it's as though I had to find out what he was all about through me, and in doing so, I'm getting to know him because there are certain things in the few exchanges we had that really do resonate with him.
From him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So.
And that's just so amazing, like hearing that you gave your mom hypnosis at 10 years old. And that leads me to the question I had about, if you've ever adopted that kind of training for yourself, and that hypnosis, really that word, meaning to go inside and to get calm and to find that center. How did that start to manifest for you while you were on this hero's journey and writing your book?
Oh, absolutely. I used to hypnotize myself by, recording my own voice saying positive affirmations about a certain thing that I was insecure about, let's say public speaking. And I would go and lay in bed and listen to that just endlessly. And it wasn't... I got to kind of pick and choose based on all the therapies I saw my mother go in and out of, how to create my own way of figuring myself out. And so that's essentially what I did, was come up with things and rituals and slowly piece myself together.
Because we are all different interwoven tapestries, multifaceted, with all these different threads running through us from our past, from our experiences growing up, from the people that we've come from, and everybody's different. That's why we're all so unique. So you've really been on this journey to find so many threads in your tapestry. And is that what your book reflects, is how to do that for people?
Yes, and to find a center in your own life. And then you'll find that once... and I'm only speaking from my personal experience, but I'm someone who lives, you might say, day by day, week by week, because that's the only life I've ever known. And I've tried giving the other life, going after money and success, a try, and it just does not resonate. But I have yet to be a rich man, but I've lived a very enriching life. I feel that the value from that is something that you
can't put a price on it.
And I'm compelled to share with others to awaken them to their own source of happiness, their own source of being, so that nothing is seen as external that is going to fulfill you internally.
Right.
It's all about getting to know yourself, finding a center, and then coordinating your life around
your reality around that. And that's the whole idea about manifesting your intentions. A lot of people start in the wrong place. They think, okay, here's my intention. I want that big house, or I want that car. I want to be happy. And they don't even know what happiness to them means, because they have not yet searched inside to understand their own tapestry. And so for you to be saying, to come to that center, and that from there you then manifest your life around that. That's really how it starts. So having this conversation today, especially regarding the mental issues that you were presented so strongly with as a child. This could have been an incredibly traumatic, hindering experience for you. As we discussed in the earlier part of the show, a lot of disorders come from things that happened in our childhood. And so for you to have risen out of that in such a positive way and produce something with your own truth that you created, instead of being hindered by this was not an obstacle for you. This was this beautiful challenge presented to understand yourself better. That's really the message I want to be able to highlight for the listeners today and for the book that you've written, because in life, that's what we all need to be doing. We need to be looking at everything that happens to us externally, everything that happened to us in our past, and coming inside to our own truths and figuring out what that meant for us so that we get stronger and grow to knowing ourselves. And then we can give that out in the way that makes us happy. That's following your bliss. But you first have to find it from inside. So I really value that you're somebody who's lived that and that you've written something that people can look to and refer to for that information.
Well, Alexandra, I'd like to ask a question because we have a couple more minutes we can talk about before the next break. But both your parents were musicians, or right brain type of people.
Right wing.
Right brain type of people. Sorry.
I don't think they were right wing.
Maybe they were right wing. Maybe they were right wingers too. I didn't know that part. But it's interesting because in that kind of business or that kind of job, that kind of upbringing, it's so hard to be acknowledged. That you're a good enough actor to get this part. You're a good enough musician to do this. You're good enough. Alicia's family's in show business.
Yeah, I come from music.
Your dad's a concert master, and her mom's a model. And in a couple of movies about lately, like Birdman with Michael Keaton, where he was an actor that he was just longing to have somebody love his work. And recently we have La La Land out, and same thing. They're both trying to get to work in
and he
music.
says you got to give it everything you got.
And that's so much stress for that kind of thing. I was wondering. If your parents' stress from being a big band person and a pianist, it made this worse or made it better or didn't have any effect on it. But we're going to go to a break in about 5 more seconds here, so and then we'll come back and talk to you some more if that's okay, if you have time. But this is Dr. Gregory Jenkins, and we're on AM 1220 KHTS 298-5487. Please call us back. Thank you very much.
Hi, so we're back with the Doc and Doc Show with Dr. Jenkins. I'm Alicia Dukov, doctoral student, and we're on the phone with Alexander Demetrius, who had called in regarding, in his childhood, having had a mother with dissociative identity disorder and what that was like, and he's turned it into something really positive in his life by writing this book. Before we went to the break, Dr. Jenkins asked a really interesting question, which I'll rephrase now, which is that being that both of your parents were artists, and it's hard enough to be that in this world and get recognized for it, do you believe the impact of stress had anything to do you think it impacted the presence of this disorder in your mother?
It definitely impacted because she was unable to hold down a regular 9-to-5 job, and we were struggling. I mean, we were in poverty because she just could not function. So she raised me and a house on $500 a month, and she was very resourceful, which is something that I
creative, right?
Picked up from her. Absolutely,
she's a genius.
Yeah. So it wasn't so much struggling, it was just how life was, and because there was no other basis for comparison, I just grew up with that.
It was normal to you.
Right, and that being the kind of life that I'm living is really living the journey. I needed those lessons to be able to support what I'm doing right now. Pardon me, in the present or right now. So.
Right. In other words, how to survive, not just survive, but thrive, living your passion, even if it doesn't make the big bucks. Because what you were saying is it's so much more than about that.
Well, for myself, I'm a community actor, a karaoke singer. Like when I go to sing, I only want to sing songs that people really like, even though I like some songs better, because when you're a right bringer, you always want to please people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you want to please people, and you want the whatever you're doing to be loved. So yeah, I only sing songs that I know that are popular that people like. And the same with in shows I've been in. I just want to be in a show that so I can get a really good part in it because people will love it.
Right, it comes from a good intention.
Yeah, and I think that maybe with your mom and your dad, they're both in music business. It'd be very, very hard for them not to be loved in what they do. But everybody loves the big band, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
and it spurred me into the acting business. And you were saying, Alicia?
Yeah, and that's where I was going to bring it for you just now, as you said that you spent a lot of time trying to be an actor out here, living in beautiful Van Nuys, doing the whole, pounding the pavement thing. That's not where your bliss was found.
No, but it was part of my bliss because I got the concept of being an actor because the only form of entertainment we could afford was going to movies, and my mom was the first person to tell me what was the message in that. So I learned that movies were teaching mediums, and I wanted to be a part of it somehow. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was through acting, and then I found out I couldn't act my way out of a wet paper bag. But then from that, I grew, and that whole journey gave me experiences that are now I'm utilizing in my own context to create my own path.
Absolutely.
And so
part of your rich tapestry. And I think what Dr. Jenkins just said was interesting, this idea that, the wanting, the desire, the motivation underneath our actions to please, especially when you're right-brained, when you're an artist and you just want to share yourself. I do think that that's a good intention that it's coming from. I think if, like Dr. Jenkins said, my father's a violinist, and he's a very successful one. And he has never really let the ego kind of take over and make him feel shaky inside if it didn't manifest in the attention that he wanted. So I think there's a factor in believing in yourself that must stem from childhood and not having a sense of insecurity or a sense of like a lack of self-worth from your childhood. If you've been neglected, if you've been abused, you said your mother came from a terrible childhood herself. So I do think there's a factor in how we're raised, and people underestimate the importance of what happens to us impactfully in our childhoods, how that manifests later. So
because my mom, if I may, she ingrained me with this when I was a kid, which was yo soy un médico cirujano con fama internacional, which in English means I am a medical surgeon of international fame. And she said I wanted to inculcate your mind with the idea of international fame, whether it was a doctor, lawyer, or Indian chief. So despite appearances, that's what you would strive for. And that's
basically,
what I feel.
The same thing. My mom used to raise me saying, the world is your oyster. You've got everything inside of you, go get it.
Well, I just wanted, maybe we have to close up here pretty quick, is that we have our guest today, Alexandra Demetrius, whose book, The Reward of Not Knowing a Hero's Inward Journey, is available on Amazon and all kind of places like that. But this is Dr. Gregory Jenkins with Alexandra Demetrius. We're going to have him back for another show, hopefully.
We certainly
and
are.
Alicia Dukoff is our doctoral student with us tonight. So we hope to see you all, listen to you, and talk to you all next week. This is Gregory Jenkins at AM 1220 KHTS at 298-5487. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Alexander, for calling.
Oh, my pleasure, Alicia. Is it Alicia or
it's Alicia? Yeah, he's called me Alicia since I was 9 years old. This guy's known me since I was 9.
I always like to ask, so okay.
Right. So we're gonna close down right now with
so
Alicia.
Much.
Sure,
Alicia.
absolutely.
Alicia.
Alexander, thanks very much. And this is Dr. Gregory Jenkins. Thank you very much.
Bye.